Welcome to the Leadership with Biana Kovic Show, and thank you for being with us. Our topic, leadership, focuses on leaders such as yourselves. We believe that leadership is a skill that can be learned through practice and awareness. It is our hope that our conversation will help you become more reflective when it comes to your own leadership practices and enable you to leave a positive legacy. Our very special guest is Lousin Mehrabi. Lousin is a certified professional negotiator, executive coach, and a trainer. She delivers trainings on complex negotiations, emotional intelligence, and leadership worldwide. For 12 years, Lousin worked on the trading floors of some of the world's leading financial institutions. As a member of the senior management team, she prepared and negotiated the group strategy and IPO and mergers and acquisitions. Lousin is a graduate of 4 international business schools, holds 4 nationalities, and speaks 5 languages. Lousin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Lousin, you are the corporate trainer, executive coach, and a certified professional negotiator. And I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yes, sure. So indeed, I'm a certified professional negotiator, executive coach, and trainer, and I deliver masterclasses and advisory coaching in complex negotiations, in leadership, and emotional intelligence.
And you're conducting the complex negotiation in the Middle East.
Yes, exactly. So I'm part of an international network of negotiators called Pacifica Network. Pacifica Network has been launched by 2 professional negotiators. They're among the best in the world, Lousin Mehrabi and Lousin Mehrabi. They are 2 French professional negotiators who, on a daily basis, negotiate very high-stake negotiations such as terrorism or suicide or hostage negotiations, and as well as corporate negotiations and all that stuff. And they have created a method called Pacificas, which is the ABC of negotiations. That can be applied in any form of negotiation, and it helps you to prepare to conduct any form of negotiation. So this method they have created, and now they are training companies in this method, and they asked me to join them and take care of the Middle East market because I live in Dubai.
When I read about you, I found it so interesting because women leading negotiations in Middle East, for me, it's very interesting. So can you tell us a little bit more how people react to you as a woman who's leading these complex negotiations?
I've always been in my career part of the minority of women. My first career was in finance. I've done 12 years of investment banking where I was working on the trading rooms of some of the world's leading investment banks. So that's also rare to be a woman in that world. And then I was negotiating with the stock exchange or with financial regulators. And again, one of the few rare or only woman on the table. So I'm kind of used to being the only women on the table or one of the few. And in negotiations, it's the same. Did you know that naturally women tend to negotiate better? Like statistically, women negotiate better. However, when you look at the percentage of professional negotiators, you see that only 10% is female. So only 10% of women are professional negotiators where naturally they negotiate better. So that's an interesting fact that I want to help change. I think women don't allow themselves to take on a kind of male role, or which are defined as male roles, but without a reason. I mean, women can negotiate very well, and we should definitely change that gap, that big difference in the professional negotiation world.
My question also is, it's not U.S. that you're negotiating, but it's Middle East where men are very powerful and women really don't have a voice, or they're struggling still to find a voice. What is the reaction when you walk in and then you are the one that facilitates the negotiation? And I assume you're doing it among, as you said, among many men. But in that particular culture, what are the reactions that you're getting?
Well, in Dubai, I haven't noticed any disadvantage in being a woman yet. They've always treated me with respect, and although we can think that it's a Middle Eastern country and the gender plays a big role, I have the impression that they look more at really your experience, your background, and seeing that, yes, I am a woman, yes, I have a Middle Eastern name, but I grew up in the Netherlands and France. That's where I studied, and that's where I became a professional negotiator. That's where I did my career in investment banking. And then they're like, okay, she knows what she's talking about, and then it's okay. So the fact that I have the credentials, the experience, overlaps the gender, I would say. So I haven't had any bad experiences at all. I do believe, of course, it will happen in settings where people will say, I don't want to negotiate with a woman. But that even occurs in Europe, and then we can find a solution around it.
You mentioned that you're using a particular method when you're negotiating, and I was wondering if you can share a little bit more about the method.
Yes, absolutely. So the method is called Pacificas, where, again, when the method was created, it was Pacific for the word Pacific, saying if you know how to negotiate, you can solve complex negotiations without the use of arms, without aggressivity, etc. And this method was created by the two negotiators I just told you about. And one of them used to work for the RED, which is the elite branch of the French National Police. And there he helped create the negotiation branch, because before that existed, when there was someone that they wanted to capture or someone behind closed doors, they would just break the door and go in. And then this negotiation unit was created, and within only several years, they went from a success rate of 30% to 80%, where the use of arms wasn't needed anymore. So by using negotiations, they could solve complex situations without using guns or arms or violence. And that's really a fascinating fact and percentage. And that is also what inspired me to work with them, because we truly believe that the world would be a more pacific place if people negotiated better.
And what is a better negotiation? Like, are there steps?
Yes, Pacifica, each letter stands for something. So the P stands for power and leadership, etc., etc. And it's kind of a checklist that you go through when you prepare a negotiation, and you go through each step. You prepare the negotiation so that you're the best equipped to go into a negotiation. And then, of course, a negotiation is a lively fact. I mean, you can't prepare everything. You're negotiating with the human beings. Human beings are extremely complex and unique and singular. So each negotiation is different and unique, which makes you want to adapt, right? But having a method like this at least allows you to prepare so that you can improvise during.
And you do more of a business negotiation, right?
Yes, the experience I have in trading room is more commercial and financial negotiations. So I've done negotiations in mergers and acquisitions, or preparing an IPO, or simply negotiating contracts, or pushing forward our ideas in a more lobby setting. And that is what I do. Yes, I haven't done any hostage negotiations yet. It's more commercial and business, yes.
So would you say if you were to do in a future hostage negotiation, would you say that you would need additional skills to do it? Or with whatever skills you currently have, you would be able to transfer to any other negotiations?
If it's a real life or death, I wouldn't do it. If you want to be a good negotiator, one of the forces that you need is to be humble and to know, okay, when can you handle it and when you can't. A few months ago, I had my first suicide negotiation. And that was very scary. I had one of my clients calling me and saying, Luz, I have prepared everything. Everything is ready. I'm going to go. And I didn't understand what he was saying. So I called him right away and he didn't answer. So I sent him a WhatsApp message and he was responding to that. And he explained to me that he was just fed up with life, that he had tried a lot of things, nothing worked. And he had a lot of financial problems and he simply wanted to leave. So he had prepared a letter for his wife saying whatever he wanted to be done with his body, etc. after his death. He was very serious and he was determined to end his life that day. However, the fact that he sent me the message before doing it gave me hope, saying he does want to talk. Mm-hmm. And he didn't answer the phone, but he did answer my WhatsApp messages. So I went home, connected the phone to be sure that I would have enough battery, knowing this would take a long time. And we sent each other WhatsApp messages during 2 hours. For 2 hours, we talked about everything, about why he wanted to do it, what he was leaving behind. And after 2 hours, he decided to go back home and not do it. And so I was extremely stressed, wasn't expecting it. And that's also the thing with negotiations. Sometimes you just have to go. So, of course, if there is a hostage and there is no professional negotiator around, I would definitely go and feel ready to do the first step, to connect with the hostage taker, to establish a relationship till the police comes in and takes it over.
You know, I studied mediation, and I would be curious to know, what is the biggest difference, in your opinion, between mediation and negotiation?
The biggest difference is that when you're a mediator, you don't choose sides. You're in the middle and you help to find an agreement where both parties are happy, but you don't have a preference for one of them to win. And Pacifica is a powerful method that is also used by professional mediators. They use the same methodology, they use the same steps to conduct mediation. So the method is applicable for both, but the main difference is that as a negotiator, you work for one party and you do choose which party you want to win. Of course, the goal is to satisfy the needs of both parties. For me, that is a successful negotiation, that the needs are met, but as a mediator, there's also the aspect of the law and, the mediator coming in and having even legal power, which is not the case for the negotiator. So we help our client get the best deal possible while respecting the needs of the other party, but we do choose sides.
Interesting. When I was trained as a mediator at Columbia University, they constantly told us you have to stay neutral. So how do you stay neutral when you negotiate? Or do you want to stay neutral?
You don't. That's the difference between negotiation and mediation. You, as a mediator, you stay neutral. As a negotiator, you are defending one party and you want that party to win. And when I say win, I'm not talking about a situation where one wins and the other loses. That's not the goal. As a negotiator, you want the needs of your client to be met and get the maximum out of it that is possible, but by respecting always the other party and getting their needs met as well. And it's the same as for a lawyer. When you're working for a client, you want your client to win, and that is with negotiations. But then again, there are, of course, a lot of things that are the same, and the methodology can be used to do both. But personally, knowing myself and my personality, I know I'm a better negotiator than mediator because I naturally tend to choose sides.
Yeah, I agree. I think it does go along with your personality because, personality sort of dictates how you behave in the environment.
Yes.
So another thing that we were also told is that you want to feel the space and kind of see whether or not the sides that you are working with are open to moving into a resolution. So I would be curious to know, when you're negotiating, is that how you also evaluate the situation?
Absolutely. It's very important to understand what the needs are of the other party because they always come with something that they want, but that's not necessarily what they need. And that is one of the main errors that many people make. They go into what the other party is saying that they want. However, often that's just the facade. That's just the first thing that they show you. And that's hiding the real need that they're trying to satisfy, which can be something completely different. So as a good negotiator, it's extremely important to first establish a relationship, rapport, to establish trust so that the other people start talking. And then you use all kinds of skills and techniques and tactical listening skills as they have also developed to make the other person talk and get as much as information as possible for you to know what is the need, what is it that they really want, and how can we satisfy that need without necessarily satisfying the first demand that they came with.
And in terms of the time, how do you pace your timing and how do you know, okay, it's time to wrap up this deal or not?
Oh, that depends on a lot of factors, also on the urgency. If we're talking about life and death, if we're talking about a commercial contract, if we're talking about a contract of a few $1,000 or a few $1 million, that all determines the pace. And also in terms of culture, in some cultures, negotiations can go on and on. In other cultures, it's very short and straight to the point. I grew up in the Netherlands, for example, where we are extremely direct, and there it's shorter. So it really depends on the negotiation that you're dealing with. I've had contracts that I've negotiated for over a year, and then I take negotiations that just lasted a few hours because the decision maker was only available in a short period of time and wanted to make a decision right there and then. So it really depends on what kind of negotiation it is.
And it's so interesting because I grew up in Serbia, so we also direct folks. So most of the time I was always told I have to pull back my directness and let the situation unfold. So how do you deal with folks that are not as direct?
Well, that's all part of the first few questions that you ask to get an understanding of, okay, who is it that you're dealing with and what is their way of thinking? Are they direct and you adapt? Are they not direct? and you adapt also. So it's not that one is right and the other is wrong. I think it's extremely important to listen well, to establish rapport, to create a trusting environment, and to adapt to the other person. Because in the end, you want to satisfy your needs. You don't want to satisfy your ego, right?
Absolutely. So you mentioned the word humble, and I would be curious to know, how does humbleness impacts leadership?
I think it's key in leadership. As a leader, you get the responsibility to lead a team or an activity or a department in a direction that it needs to go. And I think being humble is key in not letting the leadership role go to your head and make it an ego issue. I think if you stay grounded, if you stay humble, that allows you to, just what we discussed about the negotiation case, to know, okay, when do I have to call someone in? When do I need to hand this over to someone else? When do I need to hire the right people with the right skills? It helps you to stay grounded. I think humility is a superpower that leaders need, and it's also something that is felt by others, because humility goes hand in hand with authenticity, with being real, with knowing your strengths but also your weaknesses, and not hiding away from it or not trying to cover up. And that's the main difference, I think, between inspiring leadership and authority.
And what I'm hearing also, it's being highly introspective.
Absolutely. I think self-awareness, self-knowledge, and self-acceptance is key in leadership. You have to spend time with yourself. You have to know yourself. You have to know what you are, who you are, and how you want to be in order to put yourself best forth, in order to reach your highest potential as a human being. And there I'm not talking about skills necessarily. I'm talking also as human being. Who are you and who do you want to be?
Which leads me to my next question. You're actually an expert on emotional intelligence. And I want to get your take on it. Why is it so important to bring that aspect into leadership?
Well, what we just discussed is part of emotional intelligence. Self-awareness is part of emotional intelligence, and then that goes into self-expression. How do you express yourself, which then goes into relationships, what kind of relationships you have with others, how do you handle stress, how do you make decisions, and those are all key in inspiring leadership. Emotional intelligence is definitely key, and I think that's what makes the biggest difference between someone who is a leader because of the position they have or someone who is a leader because of their natural leadership abilities. And everything that's part of the emotional intelligence world comes there. That's the main difference. I also believe why when a company has to choose between two leaders, when there is a CEO position, it's the one with emotional intelligence that will win it, because they're the ones who can express themselves. They're the ones who make the right relationships. They're the ones who know how to put their best self forward, and they're the ones who know how to communicate. For me, you can't be a leader without a good sense of emotional intelligence.
So what you're saying to us, there are two types of leaders. Leaders that might be good tradesmen and leaders that have a high sense of emotional intelligence. And if you want to choose one or the other, you would rather choose the latter.
Yes.
You know, something that's happening in the States, like it seems to me in leadership role, people actually go for the tradesman and then they hope that the tradesman will turn into a leader. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we have proof now with the President of the United States, right? I mean, he has the skills of a manager. I think Donald Trump has managerial skills. He can be a good manager and get things done. He says what he wants, he says what he does, and he just gets it done. However, in the way he communicates, in the way he inspires people, in the way he is authentic, there's so much to be said. And that is exactly the example between what I call a manager and a leader. You can be a leader without leading a team, and you can be a manager of 100 people or millions in the case of Trump without being an inspiring leader.
So what you're saying to us, Trump is more of a manager. He's more of a task doer versus someone that is capable to set up an example and see that vision and communicate in a way that actually brings people together.
When we look at his leadership style, it's more a one-man show. It's look at me, look at what I'm doing, and we forget that there is a whole cabinet, that there is a whole team, that there are many other people. It's all look at me, look at me, look at me. So if you're leading a team, how can you inspire if it's all about you? For me, inspiring leadership is not about the position or the role you have. It's about the posture. It's about how you talk. It's about how you inspire people. It's about legacy. It's about what you leave behind. It's about what you stand for. It goes way further than getting things done. Of course, that's an important part, but nobody got where they are without the support of others. So if you're incapable of motivating your troops, of inspiring your troops, of getting them to do things, for me, you're not a leader.
You know, it's so interesting that you talk about posture, because what you are saying to us is think about the message they're sending out and how that message actually makes people feel and what is the impact that it creates among millions or among few that you're leading, right?
Exactly. It's a posture. You have children who set up companies or initiatives, and now thanks to social media, they get some attention. And you see that despite their age, they are leaders. They are creating something. They're creating a movement. That is leadership. That is a posture. It has nothing to do with the number of people that you manage. Look at the inspiring leaders of all time. For me, those are people like Nelson Mandela. He was a leader by the way he was thinking, by the ideas he had, by the plans he had. Nobody was reporting to him, yet he was a leader. Look at people like Martin Luther King. He had millions of people follow his ideas. Nobody was reporting to him, but he was a leader. Same for Gandhi, etc. Those are, for me, true inspiring leaders who make a change, who come up with ideas, who are able to inspire, and they create natural followers. Those people don't follow them because they're afraid or because they want something from them. Those people follow them because they are inspired. That's what I call inspiring leadership.
You know, I think in the States, because of the current political situation, there's lots of bullish leadership. What are your thoughts on that? What kind of impact that type of leadership have on folks that are working with people like that?
Well, leaders who are bullying, who are putting others down in order for them to go up, for me, that's a management style, but it's not leadership. It's often to hide a lack of self-confidence. It's often to hide a lack of skills, which they don't have. So they let other people do the job and then take credit for it. I used to work for 2 managers who were like that, so I have the experience. And again, for me, that's a management style, a bad management style, but it's not leadership. If you're a leader, you naturally don't do that. And yes, these skills can be developed with emotional intelligence.
And just so we clear, you can be a good manager, a positive manager. Not all managers are bullish.
Yes, it's a management style, and then there are different management styles. And when you are an inspiring manager, that's when you become a leader.
So in your opinion, then, what are the traits that a leader needs to have to be a truly successful leader?
For me, what's key is authenticity, is being congruent, meaning whatever you say, whatever you do, and the way you do it is in line, which creates an environment of safety where people can speak up, where people dare to make mistakes, where people dare to be themselves and put their best self, where people dare telling you that they don't agree. If you're, as a manager, as a leader, able to create an environment that is safe enough for people to speak up, that's where they will give their best self. And as a leader, you have to always keep the strategic vision of where are we headed and be able to make decisions without having all the information that you need. So all those things combined make a good leader. Are you able to inspire people? Are you able to create an environment of trust? Are you able to lead the troop? Are you able to make difficult decisions? And are you being authentic during the entire process?
So, you know, authenticity is a very interesting word for me because nowadays, for example, looking at our president, he says, well, I am a brusque person. I'm authentic like that. Would you say that if your authenticity is not aligned with the greater vision of the organization or the country, you need to re-examine your authenticity?
Absolutely. That's an excellent question. Authenticity on its own is, of course, not enough. And that is something that we have to give President Trump credit for. He is authentic. And I think that is one of the things that people admire about him, that he is the way he is. You get what you see what you get, and he's not faking and acting. He is the way he is. This is the real Trump. This is the way he is. This is the way he thinks. This is the way he acts. So in that sense, yes, he is very authentic, and that is important. But that doesn't mean that the ideas are okay or that the actions are okay. But the way he does it in an authentic way, and I do give him credit for that.
But what you're saying, ultimately, you need to change that. Once you take on certain position, you do need to re-examine your behavior and align it in a way so that it's more conducive to a greater good of all, right?
Absolutely. When you're given a leadership position, it comes hand in hand with responsibility. It comes hand in hand with teamwork. You weren't put there alone and based on your own efforts solely, right? So it comes with a lot of responsibility. People are looking up to you to make the right decisions, to take them in the right direction, to inspire them, and if you're good, to get them along. But if you're there and just making the decisions on your own, extreme decisions, and making it a one-man show or a one-woman show, there are also female leaders who are not inspiring, then I think you miss the cause. Then I think the leadership role went completely to your head and to your ego, and then it's all about you and it's not about serving others anymore. For me, leadership is about serving. When you are given the responsibility, you need to act and you need to deliver and you need to serve. And if that's something you can't do or you can only serve your own purpose, that's the time to step down.
And what I liked about what you said, you have to take responsibility for your action and the impact that those actions are making in the long run.
Yes, and taking responsibility sometimes means stepping down. We've seen many leaders in history who stepped down, who said, now that this happened, I don't have the confidence of my cabinet anymore. I don't have the confidence of my people anymore, and I'm stepping down. And I think that is also a leadership skill, knowing when it's time to stop, when it's time to let someone else finish the job, and when it's time not to represent yourself again. And we see it over and over again in people that once they come to those high positions, they will go for another round and another 4 years or another 5 years, and they just don't know when to stop. And that's, again, a sign of knowing, oh, okay, this went up to its head. This is, again, ego. Then they want the leadership role not to serve, but for the position and for the image that it gives. And then it makes it about them again, and then it's definitely time to step down.
So do you believe that leadership can be addictive?
Absolutely. I think leadership can definitely be addictive. But then again, it's when the people think about leadership as a position. As look at me, I'm the president of, and that can also be a corporation. And that's when it becomes addictive. Yes, I absolutely believe it can be addictive, and that's when the danger starts.
And another thing that I would like to get your point on it, you're surrounded when you are in that such a high position, majority of people are constantly yesing you to death. And even though they see that what you're doing is not good, how do you create an environment where people are actually genuinely honest with you and are not afraid to speak up?
If you want an environment where people speak up, where they are honest, it starts with being honest yourself. It starts by creating trust yourself. And that, again, comes back to authenticity and true inspiring leadership, where you dare to be yourself. Now, in order to be yourself, you need to know yourself. And that's, again, back to emotional intelligence. That's how you see that everything is linked. That's why when I tell people, I give conferences on complex negotiation, leadership, and emotional intelligence, they tend to be confused, whereas for me, it's completely the same thing. You can't have one without the other. So to come back to your question, it's simply by leading by example, by being humble yourself, by admitting your errors yourself, by sharing your own fears and insecurities. That's where you create an environment of trust. Then other people feel that they can do it too, and there won't be any sanctions for it. There won't be any sanctions for speaking up. It's the same with the leadership of the 2 professional negotiators that I'm working with. I have the full confidence that I can tell them, this is something that I can lead. This is something that I can't. This is something that I need help on. This is something that I won't go. And I know that there will never, ever be sanctions, but they will appreciate that honesty and send the team that I need. I think that's crucial also to help you stay grounded and to know your values. For example, personally, I don't get involved in any negotiations where there is a lack of freedom. For me, freedom is the non-negotiable aspect. And when there is a negotiation where one of the persons involved is not free, personally, I can't handle it because that goes against my values. So I know whenever there is a freedom issue, I need to get someone else in because I won't be able to stay lucid enough to deal with it. And the men I work with, their thing, for example, is children. Whenever there is a negotiation, when there is the life or safety of a child involved, where they have to negotiate with someone who is doing harm to children, that's when they know that they're backing off and sending someone else because they would just go crazy and want to kill the guy.
Interesting. So you have to know how far you can go within.
Exactly. And that, again, that self-awareness is extremely important. Like, what are your values? When you're negotiating, you have to know for yourself first, what is for me negotiable, what isn't. what is sometimes negotiable, what is never negotiable. Those things you have to know for yourself and establish that so you know to where can I go and where can't I based on your personality and the values. And then the rest is, of course, determined by the people that you're negotiating for, whether it's a company or your manager. You create a clear mandate that is also part of Pacifica. You create a real mandate to know exactly on each point onto where can we go and where do we go back to the decision maker and decide, okay, what do we do next?
So you have created a growth method called scaleup. And I was wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about it.
Oh, yes. Scaleup is a passion of my life. It's a kind of summary of what I do, and it's two parts. So I have scaleup for corporations, where it's scaleup for success, and that's where I come in teams and I discuss the following subjects. So the S stands for soft skills, the C for complex negotiations, A for agility and active listening, L for leadership, E for emotional intelligence, U stands for unique strengths, and P for public speaking. So those are kind of the subjects that I give conferences on, that I give trainings on, that I intervene in. When they need someone, I say, okay, this is scaleup. These are the things that I do.
But it's interesting because what it sounds to me, it's everything is, as you said, everything is connected. You can't be a good leader unless you have emotional intelligence. You can't be a good leader unless you're listening.
Yes, it's all interconnected, and it's all part of growth of an organization or of a person. But then when I do executive coaching with C-levels on one-on-one, when we take it further, so when we really deep dive into the personality and the strengths and weaknesses of an executive, scale-up stands for something completely different. Then scale-up stands for the S for self, where again we take accountability for who we are as a leader and what we do. Because when someone comes to me and says, Luz, I want to be coached by you, I ask them a few questions to know if they're coachable. Not everybody can be coached. Not everybody wants to change. Not everybody wants to take accountability for where they are in their lives. And that's where I have absolutely nothing to do. If you don't take accountability for who you are and where you are in life, I can't take you any further. So that's definitely step one, and that is the S for self.
Mm-hmm. You know, some people can say I'm a coachable person, but internally they might not be coachable. What are the indications?
Well, it's very simple. They come to me with an objective, right? I want to be coached because I want to do ABC. And then I ask questions like, why haven't you done ABC yet? What has prevented you from doing it? How come you're not there where you want to be yet? And then if I hear them say, because of my husband, because I have children, because of the economy, then I know, okay, that's where I need to dig deeper. However, if they are aware that all those things are excuses, that they talk about because I didn't have the self-confidence to do it or because I didn't believe in the ideas, that's where I know, okay, here we can work on. And then it's also in terms of time and involvement and money they want to invest. And I never do coaching session of just once. I just don't do it because it's a process. People are growing. It takes time. You can't undo something that you've been doing for 40, 50 years in one session. So I created packages of 3 to 4 months. And again, if they say, oh my God, 3 months? And I'm like, yeah, and that's the minimum. Then I also know that, okay, these people want a quick fix, which I don't believe in. And those are a few questions that I always ask to see if someone is coachable, if they take the accountability for who they are and where they are.
Interesting. And what I experienced, I had many coaches too. You have to have that level of chemistry, I think it's the word, with your coach, because if you don't, it becomes a mismatch.
It's extremely important to have trust in the coach you're working with and to establish the right relationships because we go so far in coaching. I mean, I've had people who tell me things that even their own partners don't know. I've had people sharing things with me that I had tried to hide for years or decades. It's very intense. So yes, the trust is extremely important. And I also tell people when they come to me for coaching, I say, have you talked to other coaches? I advise you to go talk to other coaches to kind of feel who do you think is the best person to expose yourself to? Because this is going to be deep and you definitely want to have a trusting person that you can open up with because, the more you share, the further we can go.
And also, so we are clear, coaches are not doctors, right? So if someone has a mental illness, you don't fix that, right?
Yes, coaches are not doctors. Of course, there are coaches who are both, but that's another story. But me, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't give medicine. So if I have the sense that someone is in need of that, I definitely tell them that this is not something we can do. The main difference between a therapist and a coach is that a therapist looks what has happened so far and goes in the past of a person. Okay, you're feeling this way. What happened that made you feel this way? And let's go back and fix it. Whereas a coach says, okay, what is your goal? Where do you want to go? And how can we get there from now? So, of course, I take things back from their history, from their education, from the way they were brought up, and all those things matter to know where they are today, but only if it serves a goal to get them where they want to be. If it's to deal with emotional trauma and things that are still in the past that don't allow them to move forward, yes, that's when I send them to a therapist.
So you wouldn't necessarily coach folks that are facing an emotional storm?
Well, everybody has emotional trauma, and we do touch base on that. But if it's something that they're going through right now, if someone is extremely depressed, like diagnosed depressed, then no, I don't do it. It's not the right time, and you're not doing them any service, because I use a lot of, for example, personality analysis to determine what kind of personality they have. I use Strengths Finder to know, what are their strengths. And sometimes people are in a condition where they can't even answer those questions, where they doubt so much about themselves and their own capabilities that the coaching tools that I'm using won't even have an impact. Therefore, it's extremely important from the beginning to ask all those questions to know if someone is coachable, to see, is this the right thing for that person? Because again, as a coach, I'm there to serve people. So if I know they need to be served in another way than what I'm offering, then that is the number one thing I should tell them.
So talking about difficulties, we all face setbacks. And from a coach perspective, how do you move through setbacks easily?
Yes, and that's an aspect of emotional intelligence, of what is your level of agility? How do you deal with setbacks? Do you see them as bad luck happened and you try to forget about it? Or do you really deep dive into it and say, what are the lessons that I learned from this, and how can I grow stronger because of this? I went to several extreme setbacks in my own life, and those have taught me the most. In the periods where you're, really being hit by life, the vision you have of the future, the level of optimism you have, the level of self-confidence to deal with this, all plays a role in how you get through it and if you become stronger or not because of it.
What do you think, what are the core principles that got you through the setbacks or the stormy days that you were completely thrown off your path?
I always had this thing that I feel extremely lucky for the little things in life that I have. The simple fact that I can see, that I can hear, that I can read and write, that I live in a country where there is no war, all those things I feel extremely grateful for. And I think gratitude is one of the superpowers that helped me go through things, because whatever happened, I was always telling myself this could have been so much worse. So I'm always grateful for wherever I am, despite the difficulties. Now, this is easy to say afterwards. When you're in the middle of the storm, that's not the way you think. But when you look back and say, how did I get through this? Then now I've analyzed that, yes, it's a part of gratitude. And then there is optimism. I truly believe the future will be better. And then there is a part of self-confidence, but that is grown through it. Now when something happens, I'm like, okay, I went through this, I went through that, I'm still going through this. So I know I can handle whatever happens.
And, for me also is acceptance, not being in denial.
Absolutely. Do you want me to explain you the rest of scaleup?
Yes, that would be great.
For coaching? Yeah. So the S stands for self, what we discussed about taking accountability. And then the C stands for consciousness. So that's all about self-awareness, of knowing who am I, what are my strengths, how do I deal with difficult situations. It's all consciousness and self-awareness. So we work on that. I use personality analysis and deep diving questions to get a sense of that, and also to mirror that back to my clients of, are you aware of this? Are you aware of that? So that's all part of knowledge and consciousness. Once we've gone through that, then we go to the A of acceptance. So that's where what you just said comes in. Whatever you're going through, you can't be powerful if you are in denial or if you want things to be differently. There is this form of acceptance that is extremely difficult, especially when something that happens to you is extremely unfair or difficult. But unless you accept the things that are the way they are, you can't act. You're wasting so much time and energy on what you want to be different that you don't have the energy to act on the things that you do have control over. So acceptance is definitely key, and we go through a whole part of acceptance first. So we have self-accountability, self-consciousness, self-acceptance. You have to accept where you are and how you are right now, even if you don't like it. And then the next step is the L for love, self-love. So we take it a step further, and not only are we going to accept who we are and where we are, but we're going to love ourselves exactly the way we are. Not the ideal version that we want to be, but the version we are today. I truly believe everybody is born good. I believe in the goodness of humanity, and we need to remind ourselves of that. So self-love is a key element, and I'm dealing with so many executives, and they're 40, they're 50, they're 60, and they're very proud of what they have accomplished, but there's still a lack of self-love. They like themselves, but they don't love themselves. They're proud of what they've achieved, but they don't love themselves. And that's the main difference.
So I just want to pause there, because liking and loving yourself, in your opinion, is different. And I would like to know, what is the main difference?
Yeah, there is absolutely a big difference between liking yourself and loving yourself. Liking yourself is you kind of accept who you are, you kind of like the way you act and you do and you behave. But self-love, which again is very difficult, which should be completely natural, but it's not. Self-love goes so much further, because in order for you to really say, I love myself, you need to go through a whole process of acceptance, of forgiveness, forgiving yourself for whatever it is that you're blaming yourself for, of letting go, of letting be, and giving yourself credit for all the things that you do well. And that's where a form of self-love starts. And I think it's the most important skill to teach our children of self-love. So this has nothing to do with arrogance or thinking you're more important than others. I think it's exactly the contrary. When you love yourself, when you respect yourself, that's when you start truly being able to love others and respect others.
And just so we are clear, it also has nothing to do with being a narcissist.
No, because being a narcissist is a personality behavior. I actually believe that narcissists have a lack of self-love, and it's a way of covering it up. But that's my personal opinion. But no, it has nothing to do with being narcissistic and saying, look at me, look how fantastic I am. When you meet people who love themselves, there is this sense of calm. There is this sense of, I don't have to prove anything to anybody. You see this kind of shine in their eyes. They're simply content with who they are and how life is. That's how you see the difference. If you love yourself, you don't have to shout it out of the windows.
And you don't have to, what I notice, people who love themselves, is they don't have to fight their position.
No, because they're not trying to prove anything to anyone. Self-love is not a behavior. It's not a way of doing. It's a way of being. Yeah.
It's very interesting. And then one more is left, right? One more letter, right?
Yeah, so then we have the L for love, and then the E is for self-empowerment. So they come to me and they say, I have this goal. And then we do the whole empowerment thing of making them believe that they can do it, of having the motivation to do it, of visualizing what success looks like, of how it would be once they have achieved their goal. So it's a whole preparation of start working on something only if you sincerely believe you can do it, and let's get rid of all the self-limiting beliefs. That's what we do in the E of self-empowerment. And then the U stands for up, for getting up and getting things done. That is action. That is an important part of self-realization and even leadership, of doing things. It's not just wishful thinking. It's not just theory. You have to work on it. You have to get up and do it. So the U is all about the action part, where we set goals and I check in on them and we really get things done. And that's where I can also sometimes be, really directive of, okay, this is what we're going to do, and getting things done. That's the U. And then the P, once we've gone through this process, so Biana, you understand this is something extremely powerful. We go through subjects like forgiveness. We go back into what are you blaming yourself? We go to accepting the way we are. And you come out of there as like a newborn, as a new person, of, looking at life differently. You're exactly the same person, but you're looking at it through another lens, and that changes everything. And that's where we come back to the responsibility, what I said, that if you're a leader, you have the responsibility to give back. I believe in coaching, it's exactly the same thing. If you're going through a powerful, life-changing coaching and you come out of there a different person, then the P stands for paid forward. And how can you help someone else with the knowledge that you have? How can you help someone else with the person that you have become? And it doesn't have to be like a big world peace project. Mm-hmm. It can just be, how can you be a better husband? How can you be a better father? How can you be a better leader, inspire your teams, etc.? So the P is all about that in Pay It Forward.
So interesting that you said paying forward, because my question that I was going to ask you is, what is in your opinion, the impact of being a generous leader on leadership, on our people that you're working with?
Generosity is very important and comes in different forms and shapes. You have physical generosity where you simply, give stuff, where we're talking about a salary increase or bonuses or gifts. I think those have short-term or no impact at all. Generosity, I think, is not doing but being. If you're generous genuinely, that's where you touch hearts. And those things can be given with very small things. By example, by truly listening to someone, by being there for someone, by giving your time and full attention. Those are, for me, acts of generosity. When I think back of leaders like managers that I have worked for, the most inspiring ones were always generous in terms of the way they would listen or the way they would help me. That part of generosity that doesn't cost money, that is the real generosity that is important in leaders. How do you touch someone by your simple presence? And that is, again, posture and not position.
And then also what makes me think it's about being curious about other person.
Yeah, absolutely. Curiosity is a superpower. If you're curious about others and it starts with being curious about yourself, then that allows you to open up and to create rapport. And curiosity, even in negotiations, is very important. You want to know what the other person feels and goes through and get a kind of explanation and why is it that they're doing what they're doing? What is it that they're trying to achieve? What need are they trying to satisfy? And that, again, comes from curiosity, from wanting to know and going towards the other.
And for me, clarity and curiosity go hand in hand.
Well, when you're curious, it's about the other person, right? It's about wanting to get to know them better and their motives. And clarity is important where you need to know why you want to know. And there is a goal and there is a need that you're trying to satisfy yourself. And by also sharing that clarity allows you to create the trust to say, we both have an objective that we can realize together if we are clear on our intentions and where we're headed.
So, being clear with your intentions calls for very clear communication. So I would be curious to know, what are your thoughts on communication and language and leadership?
Communication for me is extremely important in leadership, because that's where you create the environment of trust. If you communicate the vision, where are we headed? If you communicate the why are we headed that way and why do we do things the way we do? If you communicate the how are we going to do it? If everything is clear and articulated and shared, that's where you create inspiring leadership where people want to follow you, not because they have to, but because they want to.
And I'm going to segue a little bit and talk about reinvention, because you have reinvented yourself many, many times. You started as a banker and then you became a consultant and many other things. So why do you think reinvention or being open to reinvention is so important?
Well, we live in a world where the world is changing at the pace that we've never experienced before. So whether we want it or not, we have to be able to go with change, to accept change, to adapt ourselves to change, and to reinvent ourselves the best way we can to deal with everything that's coming our way. It's Charles Darwin who said, and I think it's fascinating, he said, it's not the strongest of species that survive, but it's the one that are able to face change. How do you reinvent yourself? How do you go through the whole process of accepting change and making the best out of it? I think it's key, and it's not something that is a choice. It's not whether we want it or not. The world is changing. So it's not that life is asking you, do you want to change? It's happening anyway. So if you see change as an opportunity of making things even better, then you can go with it, because human beings naturally are against change. Our brains are working against us when we want to change. That's why change is so difficult, because it implies danger, right? We don't know how it will turn out, whereas we do know how it is today. That's also a reason why people stay in difficult situations, because at least they know that situation. And people tend to stay in a period that causes them a lot of pain, because at least they know the pain. It doesn't sound logic, but that's a fact. our brain does everything it can to prevent us from change. And it's also when I work with clients and we try to, make changes in their lives, I'm telling them, I'm warning them, your brain is going to give you reasons not to do it. And you're going to make up a lot of excuses not to do it. And that's normal. So when you're aware of it, when you hear yourself think all the excuses not to do something, then you can tackle it head on. I have these conversations with my head when, again, I want to do something. And it's like, no, this is scary or this is risky or whatever. I tell my brain, I say, thank you. I hear you. I know you want to protect me. I can handle this. Mm-hmm. And then I do.
Because I agree, you don't know when you start redirecting yourself or reinventing yourself, you don't know what's on the other side. But if you're dealing with something that, even though if it's really bad situation, you kind of know what to expect.
Exactly. And that is less scary than the positive outcome of what could be. Mm-hmm. We're naturally wired that way. Why else would people stay 20 years in a job they hate? Why else would people stay in an abusive relationship? It's because they don't dare believing that the future can be different. And then they have to act upon it. And it's scary to leave behind a world that you know, even if it's negative. It's scary. Change is scary. And that's what preventing people. And that's also a big difference that you see between successful people and non-successful people. It's that staying stuck in something you know you don't want, but you don't have the courage to go against that fear of change.
Because change doesn't happen overnight.
No, it's a process. That's what I said. That's why I don't do one session's quick fixes. It doesn't exist. Change is a process, and especially when you talk about yourself. I mean, you've been talking to yourself in a certain way. You've been acting in a certain way. You have created the whole behavior patterns and thinking patterns, and those are not going to change overnight. However, when you're ready to go through the whole process of the acceptance, the forgiveness, the love, the empowerment, and then the action steps, then it's a step-by-step process, and it makes things a bit more clear, and it's kind of roadmap. It's exactly the same as Pacifica in negotiations. When you know you have this roadmap, these action steps, and a kind of order, then you have something to hold on to, and you know not to skip phases, and you know that it will take time. But then again, if success is at the end, it gives at least the motivation to go for it.
So how do you evaluate your own success?
I used to believe that success was all about position and salary and the title on your business card. And I worked in investment banks for a year and thinking that was it. But I felt this sense of emptiness inside, thinking, wow, I'm achieving all those things, which were great. Especially for my age, I was one of the youngest VPs for Citigroup, and I had everything on paper that we call success, yet I didn't feel happy. So I thought there is a mismatch between success and happiness. There is a gap between success and fulfillment. And that's why I decided to make it my purpose to close this gap. We can be successful and fulfilled at the same time. And in order to be fulfilled, we need to look at success differently. For me, success today is to do something that I love, that I believe in, with people who I love and who I believe in, and we go in a direction that we believe in. For me, success is waking up and being happy about what I'm going to do, knowing it has a positive impact on people, and because success is definitely part of the whole paying it forward. And how many people are you able to reach? What is the impact that you make on people? What is the legacy that you're leaving behind? What will people say about you once you're gone? That is true success for me.
And any thoughts for women leaders?
Yes, step up, ladies. And yes, there is this glass ceiling. That is a reality, unfortunately. Yes, you will have many people trying to put you down. But the most important person that will withhold you from going for it is yourself. The biggest competitor is yourself. Face the doubt in your head. Face all the I can't do this, who am I to, etc., bullshit that we tell ourselves, and go for it. The only one preventing you from going for it is yourself. So stop blaming the society, the world, the religion, the region where you live in, the position, the work, the field. Just go for it. And accept that the only true competitor you have is the voice in your head. People will only give you what you believe you can handle. So it all starts with self-confidence, and those are things that can be built. So invest in yourself, invest in knowledge, surround yourself with other women who have done it to show you that it is possible, because it is. We're stopping ourselves from being leaders because of what the world has told us and all the nonsense that we've heard about that we always need a man to come and save us. Simply not true. And once you start believing it and you start acting upon it, then people naturally see you as a leader. And that brings all kinds of opportunities and possibilities.
And you can change your life.
Oh, absolutely. I've changed my life several times. I lived in several countries. I've done different kind of work. I've worked with different types of people. Change is also a choice. And again, your brain will do anything to stop you from it. But yes, it's possible. If you don't like what you're doing, start evaluating how you can get out of it. It's not worth it. At the end, when I was working in finance, I was simply unhappy. And it was impossible for me to think, oh, I'm going to do this another 30 years. Oh, I'm going to sit this out. Why sit things out? I mean, the fact that you were born, the fact that you're healthy, that is a miracle. That is a miracle. And you were given the gift of life to do something with it, to give back to life. You were born to create something. You have unique strengths that only you have. Get up and do something with it. The world needs what you have.
And what is your mission in life?
My mission in life, as I said, is to close the gap between success and fulfillment. We don't have to choose. You can have both. And if you expect from yourself to have both, then go and grab it. I want to close the gap between success and fulfillment in every aspect of life, whether it's happiness at work, whether it's a successful negotiation. Successful negotiation is when, you don't go off the table thinking, oh, I won at the cost of the other. It can go hand in hand. Yeah, close the gap between success and fulfillment. That's my mission.
And do you believe that as leaders, we can change someone's life in just the 20 seconds?
We can have an impact on someone's life in 20 seconds. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That can happen with the smallest thing. Sometimes it can be just the way we look at someone, just the look we give to someone. If it's filled with love, if it's filled with confidence, that can change someone and inspire someone to make a change in their life. It can be through a hug, like physical contact. It can be by actively listening, by being there for someone. And that definitely can happen within 20 seconds. If I look back on people who have truly inspired me, it's sometimes just by being there, sometimes by one phrase they said, it's sometimes by the confidence they gave me, it's by believing in me. And all those things, they can even happen in less than 10 seconds.
Any final thoughts?
My final thought is, this is inspiring me to go on and keep doing what I'm doing. I mean, there are so many people unhappy unnecessarily that they just don't have the tools, they don't have the confidence, they don't have the right people, but everything is out there. And now with social media, we have access to so much information, we have access to so much knowledge that our parents didn't have access to. Use it. We're living in this great period for self-actualization, for self-development. Go spend some time with yourself. Who are you? What do you want? Why were you born? What is it that you want to do? What is the impact you want to have? Who are the people you want to help? And yes, you are important. And yes, you can do it. And yes, the world needs you. Go for it.
How can people contact you or learn more about you?
People can reach me through LinkedIn. I'm quite active there, and just send me a message on LinkedIn and me or someone of my team gets back quickly.
Thank you so much, Lousin, for being a guest on the show.
Thank you, Biana, for having me. It was a great pleasure talking to you.
Our very special guest was Lousin Mehrabi, a certified professional negotiator, executive coach, and trainer. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Leadership with Biana Kovic Show. Remember that you're all leaders in your own rights, and the impact that you're meant to achieve starts with small acts of kindness, curiosity, and generosity. Please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you again, and until next time.